Everybody saying, we want the funk. We gotta have that funk. We kick it old school. We think we're so cool. We take it back to the past. We gonna act a fool. Enough jumps, the middle finger make my...
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Sports Buzz, a Fanatical View. I am your host, Scott D. Lewis, here live in studio, Comcast Cable, Channel 23, downtown Danbury, Connecticut, on this May 11th. Feeling a little bit like spring, but really not when you're looking at 38, 39 degrees, maybe 40 degrees when you wake up in the morning. Still kind of cold. And yes, I have still been turning the heat on periodically to take the chill out of the house. I don't understand what is going on with this weather, and we're getting ready for Mother's Day this weekend. And what do I see but an update on the impending nor'easter heading our way? I mean, what in the wide, wide world of sports is going on with the weather these days? Unbelievable. So we could have a very rainy, we've had plenty of rain this spring. We could have a very rainy weekend for Mother's Day. Hopefully at some point it stops, clears out, and everybody can enjoy the day. I know there's a big celebration planned in the evening at Yankee Stadium. I don't know if I'd be all that upset if that got rained on, the Derek Jeter celebration evening. But, you know, we'll wish him well and wish the Yankees well on that night. And hopefully, just for our own sake, get some nice weather. Hashtag spring is overrated. False expectations. What's going on? All right. I am solo, at least for the time being again. We are kind of in a permanent flux as our usual director, Mike Toohey, continues on with the new job. And we haven't been able to work things out yet to get him back in the studio. So Bob, my right-hand man, is directing the show. Of course, his show, Spotlight On, Tuesday nights at 9, Wednesdays at 12. He does have the production assistant extraordinaires in there helping him right now, Connor and Jenna, doing a bang-up job. Their show, or their store, JM Collectibles, opened this weekend. It was probably a little rainy on Saturday, I believe. But they did open. The store hours aren't officially set yet. They did do the grand opening, but they're still working some things out. There we see the storefront looks nice. Looks like they have plenty of things in there to peruse, if you will, and check things out down there. So it's in Stony Hill, Route 6. I don't know, do they have a Facebook page yet? Maybe they got a Facebook page you can go to. Maybe somebody over the loudspeaker can let me know. Is there a page? Yes, there is. So JM Collectibles, you can do that as Connor steps in. I got it, Connor, we know. It's all good. You can go down there and check them out, but look for them on Facebook and you'll be able to figure out what's going on there. So we wish them well as they continue. Mike McFadden, the Met Maniac, should be joining us any moment and coming on set. We are live, though. 203-792-4101 is the number. If you want to give a call and talk sports, we're going to do a little NBA playoffs. We will get to the NHL playoffs, and Bob's Rangers suffering the same fate as my Bruins, losing to the Senators. We'll do a little baseball, a little Kentucky Derby went down, and some boxing later in the show. But let's get right to the NBA. Huge Game 5 this week. My new favorite podcast comes from my favorite writer of all time, Bob Ryan, out of the Boston Globe, and he had the legend Larry Bird on one of his podcasts recently, and in that show, Larry Bird was saying Game 5 is always the most important game, and he did add, and we didn't lose very many in my day. And the Celtics continued that tradition last night. Game 5 at home, series tied 2-2 against a very pump your chest kind of fake tough Wizards team who was really feeling good after the blowouts they had in Game 3 and 4 back in DC. But the Celtics came home, regrouped. 123-101 last night was the win. They did a little run of their own after they were faced and hit with some huge runs by the Wizards in previous games. 16-0 in the first quarter last night to take control of the game, and they basically cruised from there as the Wizards never got closer to 13 in the second half, and they pretty much had it. And there we see Kelly Oubre taking out Kelly Olynyk in Game 3 in a game that was a blowout why Kelly Oubre took such offense to receiving a screen by Kelly Olynyk. No one can explain, and why the announcers and guys on TV kind of gave him a pass for charging clear across the court and decking Kelly Olynyk and going through a ref to do it as well. Thankfully, the NBA suspended him 1 game. When I was watching it, I was livid, thought he should have been suspended for 10 games with that kind of activity. Just completely ridiculous and unacceptable behavior. The guy, Olynyk just sets a screen. And then we got to listen to the rhetoric. Instead of people talking about Oubre for the next 2 days, they were talking about, is Kelly Olynyk a dirty player for setting a screen? I mean, unreal. The type of rhetoric that was coming out in those 2 days between Game 3 and 4. The Celtics responded by playing well in the first half of Game 4 until ultimately falling apart again, getting hit with an unthinkable 26-0 run early in the second half of a 121-102 Game 4 loss, which tied the series. So it was a lot of trash talk, a lot of doubters, and a lot of dirty play coming from the Wizards. And they had, because there was an extra day off between Game 4 and 5, an extra day off between Game 3 and 4. So, I mean, there was 5 days of people talking about how the Wizards really should have swept the series. Somehow, even though they lost Games 1 and 2, Game 1 in particular, they were up by 16 early in that game, ended up losing by 12. My math, not a mathematician, but that would tell me that the Celtics outscored them by 28 points after the first 5 minutes of the game. But yet somehow everybody said the Wizards outplayed them in that game and should have won. Not sure about that. Game 2 was an epic game. We remember the 53 points by Isaiah. Went to overtime. They won by 10 in OT. Could have gone either way. The Wizards did have a chance to win it in regulation, but to say that they outplayed them is outrageous. And so the Celtics come home and they handled their business, 123-101. Bradley Avery went for 29 points, 25 in the first half. He seemed to be a little bit recovered. He had a hit pointer in Game 2 that he gutted out, but he did seem affected by that in Game 3. He suffered another hit pointer in Game 3, and that clearly affected him in Game 4, but with the extra day off, he looked good, 29 points last night. Jay Crowder with 18, Al Horford with 19. They didn't need much out of Isaiah Thomas, who had 18. Balanced attack. The coach had the rotation back down. He's been struggling a little bit getting the right rotation, but he had that. Defensive effort was good. Fast break points. They got back also on transition D, held the Wizards from getting out and running, which they did in Game 3 and 4. So hopefully this ball movement, this defense, Isaiah Thomas realizing he's getting triple teamed, getting other players involved, and cutting down on the turnovers, only 11 last night, and also out-rebounding the Wizards 48-15, although I did still find it problematic that the Wizards had at least 15 offensive rebounds in the game last night. They need to stop that, but maybe we can get a road team getting a victory not only in this series tomorrow night, but in the whole season series, as it has been 5-0 at home on the year, Celtics versus Wizards this year, 0-4 on the road, so Wizards 4-0 at home against the Celtics this year in the regular season and in the playoffs. Wizards, we mentioned last week, 30-11 on the season at home. One of the best home teams in the league this year. Celtics, though, best road team in the league, 23-18. And also remember, they won 3 games on the road in the first round against the Bulls. I like their chances to come back. Remember, they shut them down defensively in the first quarter. They had a lead early in the second half. And before this just mind-boggling 26-0 run, I mean, this is a professional basketball team getting outscored 26-0. Unimaginable. I don't think they'll allow that to happen again. I expect a much closer. Really, there's been all double-digit wins, which has plagued the entire NBA playoffs, really. But I think we'll finally maybe get a closer game, and perhaps the Celtics can finish this thing off in 6. If not, Game 7 would be Monday. You don't want to get to a Game 7 if you don't have to. If you can handle your business, put the pressure on the Wizards, which it is now. They are facing elimination. If they lose, they'll have to win and then go back to Boston knowing that they haven't won there all year and that they've been getting beat in double figures each time they go there. Do they want to make that trip again? I also did have to laugh. Celtics fans did get on Oubre chanting F you Oubre in the second half, and the Wizards saying that's Boston for you. But what about that's DC? We heard through the microphones what they were saying to Olynyk in Washington. We saw that Isaiah Thomas was fined by the NBA $25,000 for an altercation with a fan who was cursing him profusely. He responded in kind. So, I love it when these teams just kind of pick on Boston, saying, oh, that's Boston. We have the audio to prove it happens in every arena, so let's not act like fans in DC don't do the same thing. So I've been a little bit fed up, a little bit tired with the rhetoric coming out of DC from the sports broadcasters and also from the players, pumping them chest with the fake tough act. The Celtics play a physical brand of basketball because they actually like to play defense, and then the other teams, when they get faced with that, throw cheap shots because that's their response to playing tough. It's fake tough. It's not actual tough defense. It's just fake tough, pumping their chest and being cheap shots. So I don't think they're going to do that again. I think the refs will get that under control, and we'll see what happens. The physical team wins in this series. Hopefully the Celtics can get balanced attack, physical presence on the road, and cut down the turnovers. And Isaiah Thomas won't have to be everything, but he can be something, and they can get some other guys involved, which they did last night, looking for a big win in Game 6. If not, they know they can come home with the Celtic faithful for a Game 7. All right, that would be Monday of next week. In the other series in the East, it was no contest. Once Kyle Lowry went down with an ankle injury in Game 2, you knew it was all over. It was blowout city, basically, although Toronto, to their credit, in Game 3 and 4, they did hold the lead in Game 3 in the third quarter before Cleveland pulled away. They did hold the lead midway through the fourth quarter of Game 4 before getting swept away by Bron and the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are now 8-0, swept both the first round and second round after they rested all their players. Larry Bird in that podcast I was listening to, the Bob Ryan podcast, talked about how he trained himself to play, 82 games a year. He never once considered coming out and resting during the regular season. He wanted to play every game, every minute. He used to average up in the mid-40s in minutes played during the postseason. He said it was all about training and just a mindset. And he was always ready to go. He always wanted the fans to get their money's worth every night. He said back in his day, guys never even talked about back-to-backs and how that was a big deal. We need to rest because we played the night before. These guys back in Larry Bird's day never even considered that as a problem. It was just the schedule. It was what it was. They went out and played, and he used to actually took it as a challenge, especially if he had a bad night on the first night of a back-to-back. He wanted to come back the next night and play better, and also a challenge to play better after playing the night before, and also just the pride factor in giving the fans what they deserve. But we know Cleveland took half the season off, rested their guys, so they were ready to go for the playoffs, and this is the result right now. They cruised to victory. They did catch a break with Lowry going down, Toronto being shorthanded. It was no contest. Speaking of no contest, out west, Golden State also cruised 4-0 over the Jazz. It was no contest there as well. If they have swept the first two rounds of their playoffs against Portland and now Utah, they're waiting for their final Western Conference opponent finals as well, as the Spurs and Rockets are in a tight series. Game 6 tonight. Spurs up 3-2, and it was Ginobili with the throwback machine, not only coming up with the block on Harden at the last shot in overtime to preserve the victory, but coming up with also the goods offensively, coming up with some big shots down the stretch in a game. I watched a lot of the fourth quarter and overtime. Both teams could not buy a bucket. Harden, who's in contention for MVP, and Leonard For the Spurs, also in contention for MVP, Leonard rolled his ankle. Not sure of his status tonight if he plays. I wouldn't think he'll be at 100%. He could not go in the overtime, and it was just miss shot after miss shot after miss shot. But Ginobili came through with a big three and a drive late, and they got the win for a 3-2 series lead. So that is the NBA picture right now. 2 series at 3-2, 2 other series at sweeps. Can the Spurs and Celtics close it out on the road in Game 6, or will they both be forced to come back for a Game 7 at home? We will see. Very interesting what's going on there. We know also Tony Parker done for the postseason and the year as he blew out his knee early in this series as well. So the Spurs are certainly shorthanded. And what was with the coach, D'Antoni, only playing 7 guys in Game 5? Not too smart there. He'll need to go deeper into his bench for Game 6. All right, let's get to the NHL. Maybe Bob can give me a little word over the loudspeaker how he feels about his Rangers suffering the same fate as my Bruins, going down 4-2 to the Ottawa Senators, losing Game 6 at home 4-2. The empty netter late to secure it. But it was Ottawa really just putting the smackdown on the Rangers. I still say it was the crucial Game 2 when the Rangers blew a 3-1 lead and a 5-3 lead late, losing in double overtime 6-5. That was the game that doomed the Rangers throughout this series. They did lose in overtime in Ottawa 5-4. It was all home teams winning until Game 6 in the series, unlike in Ottawa's series against the Bruins, when it was road teams winning early and often in that series before Ottawa finally came up and won it late. They actually won all 3 games on the road in that series against the Bruins, but they did lose 2 at home. They were able to hold the home ice against the Rangers in this series, and then Game 6 at home on the road. I heard Boomer Esiason talking about how it was frustrating because he felt like the Rangers controlled the puck, especially in the second and third period. As my man McFadden walks in, he'll be getting himself mic'd up and he can chime in as well. But I watched much of that game, and I didn't think the Rangers had all that many opportunities in the third period. When they cut the lead to 2-1 in the second, Ottawa scored right away to regain the 2-goal lead to make it 3-1. The Rangers did come out flying in the first opening seconds, really. Got that goal to make it 3-2 early in the third period. But after that, they didn't have that many great chances. And Ottawa kind of just played their zone trap, their mid-ice trap that they play. And they controlled the game, and they got the empty netter late. And that was it. 4-2 Rangers. Ottawa and out. They are done. I like Ottawa's chances against the Pittsburgh Penguins in the Eastern Conference Finals. Last week, McFadden might remember this, I mentioned that the Clippers are a team that we should probably never talk about again. All their regular season success, great records, yet they have not made it to a Western Conference Finals in the playoffs in this current configuration of their team with Chris Paul and all those guys. How about the Washington Capitals as a team we never once ever speak about again? What do you think about that, McFadden? Can we just write them off completely? I mean, unbelievable, this team. How many regular season first place finishes can they get? And yet they never make it even to a Western Conference Finals, yet alone a Stanley Cup Finals. And last night, at home, after rallying from 3-1 down against the Stanley Cup defending champ Pittsburgh Penguins, what do? They get shut out 2-0. And Ovi, the grade 8, Ovechkin says after the game, I don't think the urgency was there. It's Game 7. You're not urgent in Game 7? McFadden, come on. I mean, give me a break with this Washington Capitals team. And I mean, speaking of podcasts, I listen to the Tony Kornheiser podcast regularly, and I was just astounded as he kept saying, because he's the one who coined the phrase choking dogs. But for some reason this year, he thought it was different. And he said even when they were down 2-0 and down 3-1, they were coming back and they were going to not only win this game, but they were going to win the Stanley Cup this year. They lose 2-0 at home, shutout again. I can't wait to listen to Tony's podcast from today, which I didn't get a chance to do yet, to see what he had to say about that, because it was ridiculous. They had nothing going on at all in this game. Penguins were in full control throughout, and they win it easily, barely breaking a sweat down in D.C. And I kind of like that for also playing into my Celtics going down to D.C. tomorrow night. Everybody thought the Capitals were going to win and advance and get the monkey off their back. They're now, 1-10 all time against Pittsburgh in playoff series? Completely ridiculous. The records in Game 7 is like 3-8 now. Just unbelievable. But they all thought they were going to get that win, and the Wizards were going to beat the Celtics last night and then come home tomorrow and finish them off. So I like the bad taste in DC's mouth, adding to what could be a lot of extra pressure on the Wizards tomorrow night for my Celtics going down to maybe finish it off in Game 6, not needing Game 7. The other series, Nashville had already finished off St. Louis 4-2. Last night, Anaheim finishes off the Oilers in 7. The Ducks had lost 5 straight Game 7s in the last 5 years, including 4 straight at home. The game, though, they won last night 2-1. But Game 6, talk about heartbreak. I don't know if you saw this, Mike. Edmonton was up 3-0 with 3 minutes to go at home, looking to finish off the Ducks and advance to the Western Conference Finals. The Ducks pulled their goaltender and scored 3 goals to tie that, ultimately winning 4-3 in overtime. That is heartbreak. I would not have wanted to be an Edmonton fan in the stands that night. Young team, though, and we have to give Edmonton credit. Connor McDavid, the new young star, maybe not quite a Gretzky, but maybe, who knows, he had an incredible rookie season. The Oilers were back in the playoffs, won their division, actually. They were a first-place team. So we will see. It's a number 8 seed, Nashville against Anaheim. I'm not sure what Anaheim's seed was. Anaheim is good. And then we got the defending champion Penguins against Ottawa. So some middle seeds there, lower seeds advancing. I personally think Ottawa is going to beat Pittsburgh, and Nashville will beat, and for ratings, Nashville versus Ottawa. I'm not sure what the ratings will be for the Stanley Cup Finals and that, but that is my prediction. We still have 7 games possibly to play in those, so we'll see what happens. All right, a little baseball action. We're going to get to McFadden in a minute. I just want to say quickly, Red Sox won today 4-1. To salvage the they lost 2 out of 3 in Milwaukee. Mookie with the 3-run home run in the 9th for the 4-1 win in Milwaukee. I was a little nervous as I was listening to this game on the radio, and Farrell, who we know sometimes makes some dubious decisions, went to Craig Kimbrell in the 8th inning with 1 out in a tie game. After Matt Barnes, the Bethel kid, walked a batter with 1 out. I mean, it's early in the year, Mike. Going to your closer with 1 out in the 8th inning. As a Red Sox fan, I'm a little concerned by that. As a baseball fan, what do you think about that?
Desperate times.
Desperate times already. It's early.
Desperate times.
I mean, it's early. They're 18-16. It's early in the year. Hopefully, I don't know. I got a bad feeling this is just going to be a mediocre team this year. They're in a stretch of playing like 30 of the next 45 games on the road, too. Inconsistent offense. David Price maybe will get a start in 2 weeks. A couple injuries, Ramirez and Sandoval. I don't know. I'm not too sure I like what I see out of the Red Sox early, but it is a long season. I'm not going to jump ship yet. They are in 3rd place. 1st place, Yankees, 21-10. Swept the defending World Series champion Cubs. in an 18-inning game, in a down-to-your-last-strike game, rallied in the 9th inning, Brett Gardner home run. I think that was a 3-run shot. Unbelievable. What? Somebody explain this schedule to me. Would they have a 2-game series in Cincinnati, and then they had a day off on Wednesday before coming home for 4 against Houston? When was the last time a Major League Baseball team did not play on a Wednesday?
Very strange.
That is as odd as it gets. Baltimore second place, 22-11, as they handled the Nationals, which is good for your Mets. Nationals first place, 22-12. Mets lost last night 6-5 against San Francisco. They have won 7 out of 11 to improve to 16-17 after losing 9 straight. But McFadden, explain to me what is going on with the Dark Knight of Gotham. Matt Harvey.
Confidence.
Confidence.
He hasn't gotten back from, the problems he had last year, and I think some of that's playing with his head. And then when you add in the other
he is
stuff,
a guy who had what, rotator or Tommy John surgery?
It was the thing with the feeling in his
Oh,
fingers.
right. Okay. But he is a guy who's had surgery, been under the knife.
How many minutes?
And
4.
So he has some coming back from injury confidence possible. I was talking about last week how I could not believe what the Mets did to him 2 starts ago, giving him 2 hours notice, really screwed him up in that game, didn't pitch well, and he didn't pitch well in his next start. So then we hear he doesn't show up to the stadium, and it wasn't his day to pitch, but he was set to pitch the next day, but he's got to be with the team. He claims he was out late, then went and played golf. He was hungover, obviously, partying. Then you get the story that he's upset about maybe the girl he was dating, Adriana Lima, showing up at an event with Patriot Julian Edelman. So either way, Matt Harvey cannot do this to the team where he doesn't show up to the field and the team has to suspend him 3 games. But their handling of Harvey right before that, I mean, that was as disrespectful to a supposed ace as you can get, giving him 2 hours notice in a day game to start, not notifying him the night before that they were going to have to scratch Noah Syndergaard. Really surprising what happened there. Here's some couple stats for you. Overall lifetime, he is 31-30 with, I believe, a 5.17 ERA. He's only made $14 million in his career. He's still looking for the big payday. He needs to step it up if he's ever going to get that. All right, we got to move on away from that. Well, I mean, just give me quick on what you think. Are the Mets going to turn this thing around and have an actual legitimate season?
Yes, I think they will. When they start getting some of the players back, Syndergaard is going to be out for a while, but Cespedes is coming back in about, I think, 2 weeks. I believe Duda should be coming back this weekend, so they'll turn it around.
So I think, winning 7-11 is a good start to get back above 500. All right, Kentucky Derby took place this weekend. We only got a couple minutes. One of the favorites, Always Dreaming, did get the clean ride through the mud. If you saw at the end of the race, he was the only horse that was not covered in mud as he ran 2 3/4 lengths victory. Todd Pletcher, the trainer, Jenna, why didn't you give me the proper time to say goodbye?